Again with Ovid, and today we're going over a bunch of different news links about the assassination attempt on Trump last weekend, and a lot of information about the shooter. So, take it away.
Sure. So, just to preface this with a little information to start, I suggested the other day that we ought to try to go through this just because there's so much information coming out. There are so many theories coming out. There are so many people saying so many different things, and some of those things are confirmed, and some of those things are unconfirmed. And I feel like it would really be to the benefit of listeners to have that which we can't confirm debunked, and that which we can confirm, just added to the list of reliable information. And I wanted to kind of just try to compile as much information as I could get based on what we know so far. And I think probably at the rate that things are coming out, this is probably already going to be a little bit dated. There's probably already some things that have come out since that I didn't compile in my research. But I still think it's going to be a pretty good data dump here. So the first one. Okay, so the first article from Daily Mail, both the mother and the father were behavioral therapists. So I guess we'll just start right there. So both the mother and the father were behavioral therapists. I personally find that pretty strange. It kind of seems like, I don't know, it kind of seems like there's almost always kind of a weird connection between unhinged people and either being related to someone or knowing someone who's in the mental health industry. What do you think? Do you feel like that's kind of a trend? I feel like that's kind of a trend.
I've always seen that industry as being a secular attempt to do what religion naturally does, and I'm, by default, mistrustful of any sort of mind-altering substance. Well, not necessarily alcohol, but mind-altering antidepressants, something like that. SSRIs are, I know enough about how brain chemistry works to know SSRIs are not something you want to try.
I think that's a great point. I think that's an amazing point that you just made, that it tries to fill a void of spirituality. It tries to provide a secular answer to a spiritual problem. That's a great point. I love that. I'm probably going to use that myself in the future when I comment on it. But I don't think we know at this time if Thomas Crooks, the shooter, was in therapy. I don't think we know if he was on any medications or anything. I'm sure that's going to come out. I mean, then again, I don't know what we're really going to find out because the FBI is doing the investigation. And I don't know if you saw this the other day, but Donald Trump Jr., he did an interview with Knowles right before the RNC convention, and he straight up said he has no confidence in the FBI at all, none, to find the truth or provide the truth. He has no confidence, and I think that's how we probably all feel. Like, can we even trust the information that we're going to get when it all comes out?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, you got me thinking about SSRIs now. Like, literally the people who advocate for it, the science from their sources is uncertain. They're just, like, trying stuff on a lot of the stuff they try on patients is just like, oh, try this one, see if it works. Does it give you suicidal thoughts? Does it, like, completely sap your appetite? Okay, well, let's try a different one, or let's try a different dosage. Like, it's just so much trial and error, and they're messing with people's brains while doing this. But anyway, back to the point.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that almost any time you have a story of an unhinged person going off, mass shooting, and any other kind of like mass terror or mass killing event, almost always there seem to be some kind of medications or therapy involved with the individual. There always seems to be like a history of SSRIs or something like that.
I'm sure we will never find out because of HIPAA, medical privacy, all that stuff. But I would be curious to know, but I'm sure we won't find out.
Yeah. Anyway, so this Daily Mail article, it does cover the fact that Thomas Crooks was a registered Republican, but it also notes that he did donate to a progressive group backing Joe Biden in 2020. They don't specify what the group was. I think that a lot of people were saying the group was Act Blue. In a different article I saw, I saw it was a different group that he donated to, but it was a Democrat pact that he donated to in 2020. Weirdly enough, on like Inauguration Day. So, and I did see someone point out the fact that it's kind of a pointless donation at that point. But that is kind of strange and he donated $15. It's not clear when he registered Republican, but there are some people that have suggested that perhaps he registered Republican in order to vote in the primaries and try to swing the primaries in a certain direction, which was a strategy that, I mean, if you remember back a few months ago, that everybody was discussing.
Yeah.
Democrats were going to register as Republicans so that they could try to vote Nikki Haley or something like that.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know if this was his motive. We don't know why he was a registered Republican. We don't know what his politics were. And like I said, we may never know because we cannot trust the investigative bodies that are doing the work on this.
And that's a good point to bring up, like you said, that we're not certain which group it was, because before you said that, I was just blindly assuming it was Act Blue because everyone was talking about that particular one. So I see your point now, going through and finding out what's verified and debunking what's not.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and try to look it up really quick and see if I can find out which group he did donate to. But while I do that, I guess I'll move on to the next article real fast. If you want to pull that up.
Yep, I have it here.
Okay, so this is from CNN. And this is just kind of in the effort to try to kind of get an idea of what his politics might have been. We know that his father was registered Libertarian. His mother was registered Democrat. His father owned the AR-15, so he was, I guess, probably maybe a Second Amendment guy. He's a Libertarian, so probably believes, in like personal freedom, right to own a gun, little to no government intervention. The mother was a registered Democrat, but like I said, we don't know what this means. I mean, this is all speculation. It's all speculation. It's really hard to determine what the parents' politics were. It's hard to determine what this kid's politics were. And I mean, I don't even want to say this kid. He was 20, right?
Right.
He's an adult with agency. He knows what he was doing. He's not a kid. So let me take that back. I'm not gonna refer to him as this kid.
Yeah, it is hard to tell. I think, well, I can't even say for sure, but it's just weird. Like, Pittsburgh Democrat, so one might assume some affiliation with a union or something, but it's a mother, and the man is more likely to be associated with pro-union stuff, but then the father's a Libertarian. So it's weird to think, like, there's a lot of flavors of Democrat, and there's different flavors of Libertarian, so it's hard to know which one. But then they're both in the mental health industry. That's... I don't know, I'm just speculating wildly without knowing anything for sure.
Okay, just really quick, the organization he donated to was a Progressive Turnout Project.
Okay.
So Act Blue was one of those things that people were saying in the beginning because I think they misidentified him. They mistaken his identity with a different Thomas Crooks who did donate to Act Blue, a 69-year-old Democrat who lives in Pittsburgh. who happen to have the same name as the Republican who shot Trump. So,
that is something else I heard. I heard there were 2 people that got misidentified with him. One of them was that 69-year-old who made the donation, and then, well, I should preface this, I heard this from far-left word-of-mouth sources, but the other one, according to them, was the younger guy. Looked like he was in his 20s. He put out that video online saying, I'm still alive, I'm not the shooter.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the purpose behind this second article here is just to get an idea of the parents' politics and maybe, possibly, by extension, the shooter's politics. I don't know if you saw. Did you see that video that some people were suggesting was him? Where it's a young, like I said, I don't want to call him a boy. He's not a boy. He's 20 years old. He's an adult. But it's like a young man with a high-pitched voice, like screaming. He kind of looks like he's on a college campus. Did you see that video? Some people suggested that.
Very briefly. Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to try to find that and pull it up really quick. I could try to find it. Let me see if I can find it real fast.
Okay, yeah, if you find it, send me the link. Yeah, that was weird. Do you know if that was actually him or was that fake?
It hasn't been verified. Here's USA Today says false claim video shows Thomas Crooks calling to slash Republican throats. So they're saying USA Today saying that's not really him. Although that is what the person was saying in the video. The person featured in that video was saying slash Republicans' throats and was screaming and just seemed really unhinged.
Normal people.
And apparently the video dates to 2020 and was filmed on the Arizona State University campus.
Interesting.
So there we go. We can debunk that one. The video of that person screaming, I guess, wasn't him.
I'm gonna debunk.
Debunked. All right. Now we get to the weird stuff.
Oh boy.
From Fox News, Thomas Crooks' parents called the police hours before the assassination attempt. So we don't know what the call was about. We don't know what was said in the call. But for some reason, hours before the rally, his parents were freaked out enough to call the police and say that they were worried that something was wrong with their son.
The call was regarding their son?
Yes.
Wow. That's...
Let me just...
That's an interesting piece of information.
Let me just go through this one really quick. Alright, so Thomas Matthew Crooks' parents contacted law enforcement Saturday, hours before he opened fire on former President Trump. The aspiring assassin's mother and father told local police that Crooks was missing, and they were concerned about his welfare.
Missing?
He was missing, and they were concerned about his welfare. It remained unclear if they knew he was in possession of an AR-15 rifle that belonged to his father.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, so the rifle belonged to his father. I didn't have this one saved in the list of articles, but he did post shortly before, not the day of, but I think a few days before, he posted a message on Steam that they have identified was him. And he said, let me see if I can find it real quick, because I didn't put this in my list of articles. Alright, just a second.
Yep.
I'm just trying to find exactly what he said.
Missing. That's really weird. I mean, I suppose if it was just missing, they might not have connected that to the rally. I wonder if the parents had any clue about... Did you find a news link about the explosives in the car?
I don't know if I have a link for that, but I mean that is confirmed. It is confirmed that there were explosives in the car, and that he had two cell phones on the roof. One was, I think one was just a cell phone, and the second one he was using as a remote detonator, presumably for those explosives in the car. And I guess he had some homemade explosives at home in his house too. I can't find exactly what he posted to Steam, but he mentioned the date. He mentioned the date that he mentioned the date of the rally in that post, something ominous regarding the date. So kind of a foreshadowing what he was going to do.
Wow.
Okay, now we have a local Pittsburgh news, WPXI. Thomas Crooks was reported and pictured 2 times in the 26 minutes leading up to the shooting as a suspicious person. First by a concerned person who noticed him scoping out the roof to the industrial building that he used as his vantage point, and secondly, a law enforcement officer who saw Crooks crawling around on the ground 26 minutes before the first shots were fired. So it's at 5:45 that law enforcement notes him as a suspicious person and begins watching him. And then 6:11 was when the first few shots went out. So 26 minutes. And this is where things start to get really strange. This is where the incompetence is so great that it's opened itself up to conspiracy theorizing that Secret Service was involved, that someone let it happen on purpose, which I'm not necessarily in either camp there. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to claim agnostic footing on this for the time being, because while the gross incompetence, which we're going to talk about here, the gross incompetence is so much. It's so much that it almost begs disbelief. It's so great. On the other hand, to accept that somebody was involved, or somebody in Secret Service or police allowed this to happen on purpose, I think the implications of that are just they're too scary, they're too big, they're too frightening. I don't know. I'm not sure that's a road I'm willing to go down yet. So I'll go ahead and let me hear your take on this.
If it was purposeful, I think it's worth asking how many people knew about it, because I was hearing something, I think it might have been last night, comparing it to the JFK motorcade, where the police on the motorcycles were told to stand back a little further than they were supposed to be. And someone told me that they got that news very, after the president was already in the vehicle, and they were already just seconds before moving. Somebody, I forget who it was, but a person in authority motioned with their hand to wave them back, and that's why they did it. So I wonder if and how many people would have been in on it, if it would have been just the sniper, or if there was some reason that the local police and the Secret Service weren't in communication with each other by radio. I heard someone else mention, I think it might have been a former Secret Service guy, say that there should have been a helicopter in the sky monitoring this stuff, but there wasn't.
Yes.
That's just my word of mouth.
Yeah, so I think it's probably Dan Bongino who said that, which when we get a little bit further down here in the articles, Dan Bongino, who is, former Secret Service, has had a lot to say on this. He's had a lot to say. And it's hard to know if everything that he's saying is accurate. And I mean, like I said, I want to put it to the stress test. I'm a fan of Dan Bongino. I like what he does, but I want to put everything he's saying here to the stress test because, like I said, the implications of the Secret Service being involved are just so great. How do you, as Donald Trump, how do you ever feel safe or secure ever again if the people whose sole job is to protect you and keep you alive may not be trustworthy to do that?
Yeah. This whole time, I assumed he was using private security as well as Secret Service. Perhaps that's just in Mar-a-Lago, I don't know.
I'm not sure exactly, but one of the things, and this will be further down in the research, but one of the things that Dan Bongino has said is that the number of people that were there, the number of Secret Service agents, it was not the correct number. He suggested that for an event like this, the normal should be 4 to 6 snipers. They only had 2. He's mentioned that the number of people on the ground surveilling, it should have been more. He's talked about how a lot of things here are out of the normal in terms of Secret Service coverage. He said that it was abnormal for them to have given the duty to the local police to secure this building and not just secure it themselves, which we'll get to the building too, because the building is all the building, that industrial building, that manufacturing building, whatever it is, with the sloped roof, is a whole point of contention as well. Apparently, the law enforcement, the officers, were inside the building, but nobody was put on top, which we'll get to in a bit. Yeah. Now, I don't have this article here, but it's also come out. So, like I said, 26 minutes before the police are notified that this guy's acting suspicious. They did radio into a generic alert channel that I guess Secret Service was supposed to be listening in on. Now, Secret Service was aware of him 10 minutes before the shooting, and Secret Service was in fact, I guess, watching him, but they lost him somehow. So they were watching him, and they lost visual on him.
How do you lose visual on someone who's prone on a roof?
Oh, it's even worse. Listen to this. He tried to get into the rally, and he got turned away because he had a rangefinder.
Huh.
So he got turned away, and he got back in somehow.
So security saw the rangefinder, but did he have the gun on him at that time, or did he leave it in the car?
It's not clear. I guess he left it in the car, and he somehow went back and got it later, and he got in with it. And people saw him army crawling. People saw him climbing up the building. People saw him on the roof with the gun.
I saw the video. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I saw the video of all the people pointing him out to local police and seeing how close that crowd was to the building. I'm surprised we didn't have like a Flight 93 situation where one or perhaps a couple of the people went up the ladder themselves, not even law enforcement, but normal people going up the ladder to confront that gunman.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, what exactly the situation looked like there. Maybe law enforcement told them to stand down so that they could go investigate it. I mean, as we'll get to in a little bit here, law enforcement did go up that ladder, and the shooter did point the gun at them, and they went back down. And then, if I have my facts straight, he pretty much started shooting almost right away after that.
Well, okay.
So I guess we'll move on to the next one here, which is that BBC interview. The guy with the orange hair, like the wild-looking orange hair, who said that he saw Thomas Crook's army crawling up the roof of the building, clearly with a rifle. He gives some time estimates. So he says he first saw him 5 to 7 minutes before the shooting started. He says he was pointing at the rooftop and desperately trying to alert police and Secret Service for 2 to 3 minutes, and nobody was stopping Trump from speaking. And he said he couldn't understand why nobody was stopping Trump from speaking. But yeah, that's the X-Link right there after the WPXI one. And that's a video. I don't know if you want to play it.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I can...
Or even if it's just a few minutes of it. Or if you don't want to play it. I feel like a lot of people probably already seen it.
Just outside. Tell us what you saw. So we had a party.
Oh, one of those hats. I've seen that.
You can see behind us.
I've seen the hat at least.
Apartment greenhouse here. We had a party. And we all decided, hey, you know, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, you know, but we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, you know, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him up the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots rang out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 or 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at them for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way that the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? I mean, this is not a big place.
Did you see, obviously everyone, when the shooting started, everyone was very panicked. Did you see what happened to him at all?
Oh yeah, they blew his head off.
Okay, sorry.
Secret Service blew his head off.
Okay, just be careful because we don't quite know who's watching, but you're pretty sure they shot the guy?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
You saw that happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you see them go up to him afterwards, or?
They crawled up on the roof. They had their guns pointed at him, make sure he was dead. He was dead, and that was it. It was over.
It's incredibly shocking.
The guy was on the roof right there. You can see the white roof right there.
Did you get a look at him? Could you?
No, other than he was in.
I think it's interesting that they don't pan over to the roof. They could, the cameraman there could pan over to the roof that he's talking about. For some reason, they didn't. I thought that was kind of interesting. I also found it funny how the BBC reporter was offended when he said blew his head off.
I guess it makes sense. I could see it from the point of view of, a 90s radio show that, still has to worry about children listening and saying certain graphic language. So I could... It's interesting. You don't see it often these days, but I can see it.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we can give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But I think what we're seeing here is a pattern. We're seeing a pattern now where not just this guy, but lots of people drop the ball. the law enforcement people. I mean, the random people in the crowd who saw this guy, and they alerted people, and they made a scene and they made noise. They did what they were supposed to. But law enforcement, I don't know, just dropping the ball again and again and again. This is, what I'm talking about. Gross incompetence. I think bordering criminal. In the same way that Uvalde police officers were criminally charged. I think that there's a case to be made that there probably ought to be criminal charges in this case, if you can find out who's responsible through just all the bureaucratic mire.
Yeah. It's always tricky to figure out who has immunity through being a public official, and there's different ways to get around it in certain cases. I know, for example, the law in Pennsylvania is you have to prove, if it's an elected official, you have to prove they were aware of the law they were breaking at the time that they broke the law. So you would have to have, like, a paper trail or an email chain of them being notified you're in violation of such and such, and then you would have to have that time stamped and have an example of them continuing to break the law after that. That's one of the ways to get, for example, a county commissioner, if you're talking about election integrity stuff, if they fail to act on removing a voter that by law needs to be removed from the voter rolls. That's one way you could do it. I'm not sure if Secret Service has the same or similar immunity. I don't know at all.
I'm not sure either. I mean, I would think that there's got to be some avenue for recourse here, but obviously it's going to depend on the right people in positions of authority, the right people doing investigation. I mean, that's the only way we're ever going to get answers, and it's the only way we're ever going to see accountability. But as I mentioned, just a pattern of everybody starting with the local police and continuing up through and including Secret Service, just dropping the ball over and over.
Yeah, it's hard to know where one group's responsibility stops and the other begins. But I suppose ultimately the buck has to stop at Secret Service, because they're the ones that put events like this together all the time, and
I mean, that's the sole purpose that they exist.
Yeah.
That the sole function of the Secret Service is to protect important political persons in these situations. If they can't do that, then they're not even serving their most basic function.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wary to blame the local police on this one. I'm definitely leaning more towards this is a Secret Service. This is a Secret Service a blunder. At minimum, it's a blunder. At worst, who knows? It's maybe more. Like I said, I'm a little bit agnostic on that at the moment.
Yeah, local police just don't have the experience to set up security for something of this size, and the Secret Service do. They should be the ones delegating everything and staying on top of it all.
Anyway, so the next one, it's another video. It's another video somebody put on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. And this is, someone took a collection of a lot of the different videos that are out there right now, and they used Trump's speaking to match them up, synchronize them. So you can see for how long all the people on the ground are screaming and shouting about the shooter on the roof before the shots go off. So that's, it's a good video to watch if you want to get kind of a good idea of how much time elapses between when there's not just one guy but a crowd of people all shouting up there, and before before the shots actually go off, and it's about 2 minutes. It's about a 2-minute gap.
Yeah, I'm playing that without audio right now, and that amount of time, there should have been a radio connection between local police and Secret Service, and they should have, at the very least, as a precaution, pulled him off stage.
Yeah, especially if they knew about him already, and they'd lost sight of him, they didn't know where he was.
Yeah.
Now, we'll get to the snipers here in a little bit. Why the snipers didn't just turn this guy into like paste immediately. Apparently they had specific rules of engagement. And this is a claim that I've seen a couple times now that I am having a hard time finding a source for.
Is this the next link, or do you want me to stay here?
No, I don't have a link for this one because, like I said, I'm having a hard time finding a source for this one.
Okay.
The best I can find is a reporter over at Real Clear Politics who says that she's spoken to people. You know, she says her sources, and that's the best we're getting, her sources.
Right.
Her sources are saying that the rules of engagement did not allow the sniper to shoot the person they saw on the roof because they didn't have a clear view of him because of the slope of the roof. Therefore, they had to wait. They had to wait until he fired the first shot before rules of engagement would allow them to shoot him, which makes absolutely no sense at all when we're talking about like a president. You know,
I agree. Absolutely no sense.
Obviously, this makes sense. You know, in other circumstances, maybe. You know, I don't know, a traffic stop. You know, knocking on somebody's door. Yeah, you can't shoot them until they present the danger to you. But when we're talking about the president, and the example given is you don't know if it's somebody up there with a telescope. I think if you climb on a roof and point a telescope at the president, you should expect to forfeit your life.
Yeah.
So if that's true, that's the rules of engagement, that needs to change. Those rules need to be changed immediately.
It reminds me of something. A while ago I was watching a documentary about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and they were interviewing the Marines who were doing security at the airport, talking about how thousands and thousands of people were just flooding the entire airstrip. There wasn't even room for planes to take off or land, and they, just like a team of a dozen or so Marines, were trying to control this crowd of thousands. And at one point, they called in probably the last remaining unit of Afghan national military that hadn't disbanded yet. And what they did is, okay, everyone clear out. They shoot one or two people as an example, and everyone else obeyed. And for like a day or so, it was completely clear. Everyone obeyed, but then the Afghans withdrew or disbanded or whatever, and they were back to the same problem. So the point I'm bringing up there is other countries that aren't, other cultures that aren't in the West don't have this hyper amount of value placed on an individual human life in situations where sacrificing one will go towards the greater good. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. It's the logical thing, but I don't know if that value on one human life should outweigh the obvious conclusion.
Yeah. I think, like I said, when we're talking about the president, when we're talking about the president's life, if you're dumb enough to climb up to that roof with a scope and point a scope at the president, and they can see that, if they can verify that much,
yeah,
you should expect to be ended. Like, you shouldn't expect to survive that. I think let's say the circumstances were changed and it turned out that's all it was. It was a 20-year-old who climbed up on the roof and pointed a like a little telescope at the president just to get a view. Let's say that was the case, and let's say Secret Service had shot that person. I think there would have been some outrage, but I think the conversation ultimately would have been, well, what were we supposed to do?
I think there would be more outrage to outweigh it.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, you're probably right.
It also depends. Like, binoculars are different from even just like one of those one single eye binocular lens type things. That's different from actually pointing a gun-shaped, gun-sized object with a scope on it at that direction.
Right. Yeah, I think now that I say it out loud and I think about it, yeah, the news would just be on the outrage of somebody getting unjustly killed at a Trump rally. That would be the headline. Person shot at Trump rally for trying to see president with a telescope or something. It would just be. So, yeah, I think you do have a point. There would be a lot of outrage, and that would be the headline. The outrage would be the headline.
Even so, I think the public would at least understand that's not the president's problem, that's the government's problem, the Secret Service problem, but, yeah, still there would be outrage.
Yeah, but when we stop and look at the greater context, like I said, we had people screaming, he's got a gun 2 minutes before.
Yeah.
So, for 2 minutes... Like I said, there shouldn't really, in my opinion, there should have been no hesitation, and it's my real hope. It's my real hope that they, I know that Speaker Johnson and the House are planning on subpoenaing anybody they can get, I guess, for this. I know that they have a plan to get the director in there, but they really need to get the rank and file Secret Service members. Not the people who make the decisions, but just the people who do the job, and put them under oath, and put them on national television and say, what were you told? What were you told? Were you told you couldn't shoot? Like the sniper, those snipers ought to be brought in and questioned in front of the whole country. Like, there's really no reason not to. And maybe it'll turn out they did nothing wrong. Maybe it'll turn out they did exactly what they were supposed to. But we're never going to know if we don't go through this process.
I wonder how much of that is stuff that's supposed to stay, like how much of their tactics and planning is stuff that the public isn't supposed to know because they don't want a potential assassin having foreknowledge of what to avoid.
Any assassin now would be, I would think, any would-be assassin would be pretty empowered by watching what just happened to think, oh, this guy's vulnerable. This guy's vulnerable as hell. So
for sure,
my big fear is we're going to see copycats. I know that they did arrest a guy outside the RNC who had an AK-47.
That's unique.
Yeah, there was a guy with an AK-47 outside the RNC. I haven't heard any more about that, so I don't know. I don't know if he was planning something. Maybe he was just an asshole demonstrator. Trying to show up with his gun just to see what would happen. I don't know.
Would be interesting to see his political donation record.
I'm going to see really quick if I can find anything on that. Just 1 second. Okay, here we go. CNN. Ski mask wearing man with concealed AK-47 pistol arrested Monday near Republican National Convention. I'll go ahead and send this link to you too if you want to pull it up on the screen.
Okay.
Alright, did you get that? I put it in the chat.
There it is.
Wearing a ski mask, carrying a concealed weapon without a permit. He was also carrying a backpack containing rifle ammunition and a mask from the movie Scream. So it was like the Scream mask, like the ghost with the long face. I wonder.
Oh, wow. Donnell Tinsley, Milwaukee Sheriff. Oh, wow, so the sheriff is the one doing security, or at least making arrests outside the convention. You would think they'd have a higher power orchestrating that security.
Okay, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see a picture of him. Did you see the picture?
I do, yeah, I have that here.
Yeah, I'm sure he was just a Second Amendment protester out there doing a freedom audit. I'm sure that's what he was doing. By the way, have you ever seen videos of those?
I have not.
They're like people. They're people who video themselves. Like they'll walk through a city, like a city with strict gun laws, but they'll
Open carry.
They'll open carry, just kind of like daring cops to come up and say something to them. And then they'll sit there. They'll sit there and give a "Are you detaining me?" kind of speech, like on video.
I definitely know of people doing that in Philly. I wasn't aware of it being like a social media trend.
There was a guy who did it in Lancaster semi-recently, like a year ago, I think, maybe, or 2 years ago, and he videoed himself. He videoed himself walking around Lancaster, open carrying, and the cops were basically leaving him alone. So he had to go up and kind of start shit with them so he could get a good video. It was pretty embarrassing to watch. I was cringing pretty hard at the guy the whole time. I was like, did people really do this? He was going up, and initiating with the cops who were otherwise leaving him alone and saying things like, "Can I get your badge number?" And the officer's like, "Wait, what?" Like he's just walking up to an officer, "Can I get your badge number?" He's like putting the video camera in their face. I don't know. It's just pretty obnoxious stuff.
Yeah,
I'm all for the freedom to open carry. I'm an advocate for open carrying for sure, but I don't think that this guy was doing himself any favors.
Definitely.
Anyway, he posted on the Lancaster subreddit. This is pretty funny. He posted as someone else, not himself, doing like an outrage. Like, did you see this guy walking around the city? Carrying his gun, starting fights with people, and then he had made multiple accounts, and he put, I think he's a First Amendment and Second Amendment auditor performing an audit. That's when I found out about that term. I didn't know that was a thing. It's a First Amendment audit or a Second Amendment audit. You walk into a city and you just kind of start shit with people and see if law enforcement will leave you alone or not.
After having directly dropped that term, I would be surprised if people on the Lancaster subreddit didn't know that the poster was the actual guy. They could figure that out. Like, they have brains. I know they're leftists, but they still have brains.
Well, midway down in the thread, people were like, "Wait a second, you came in here, you made this account today to come in and post about this person you saw and what an asshole they were, and then someone else made this account today to say, oh, I think that's this. So you made an account to complain about yourself, an account to say, oh, wait, I know what that is and explain it, and then like a third account to come on and post your video." So I don't know. If this guy's out there, I hope he hears this. I hope he knows what a douchebag I think he is.
Yes, that whole thing's pretty funny.
Yeah. Anyway, we got off track there.
Yeah.
We went down the rabbit hole after talking about the guy concealed carrying the AK pistol near the RNC. So who knows what that guy was up to? I don't know. Maybe he thought he was going to try to assassinate somebody. Hard to say. Hard to say. So the next thing, did you happen to see this video? Did you see this video of the woman behind Trump and everybody noticing her strange behavior?
I'm not sure if it's the same one. I heard about someone giving the sign of the cross.
Yes, Knowles was talking about that on the show the other day. He mentioned that someone gave the sign of the cross like right before Trump was speaking, I think, and then I think somebody did it again shortly before, and he was, making the argument that this is divine intervention, which, I mean, I guess, I believe that it was. I don't know if people making the cross in the audience necessarily had anything to do with that. But.
Right. So is this a different strange behavior?
Yes. So this is a video of a woman who appears to keep looking off in the direction of the shooter before it happens.
Oh.
And when the shooting begins, people were saying that she doesn't really duck. She just has her phone out immediately and is filming. Now, I've watched this a couple times, and I'll tell you up front, my opinion is there's nothing here. So I'm gonna put this in the debunked category. I think that she's probably just looking around. Maybe she's looking off in that direction because people are screaming over there. I don't know. There's people shouting, "Hey, something's going on." But I've watched the video a few times. When the shooting starts and everybody else ducks, she does kind of slump down a little bit. And then, I don't know, that's what everybody does. They pull out their phone and start recording. So I don't think that's weird behavior. I think that's pretty normal behavior now, actually.
Let me pull this video up.
So I'm going to say I don't think there's anything to this personally, but a lot of people are talking about it.
Go ahead. I muted the video, so you can...
Alright, do you want to start it over real quick? It's a pretty quick video, so...
Yeah.
Okay, you see her?
So she's blocked by the person in front of her holding a sign. She already has her phone in her hand, so maybe she wasn't that interested.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was already taking a picture of Trump.
Yeah, she may have already had her phone out. She may have already been taking a video. But she looks off to the side before it happens. Maybe she was looking off because Trump was pointing, he was gesturing to, he had the slide up. He had his slides up that showed, the immigration numbers under his term versus what they are now. And that's why he turned his head. He turned his head to look at the slide. So maybe that's what she's looking at, the slide.
I was under the impression that the shots came from the other direction, came from Trump's left, and then the guy that died was sitting on Trump's right. Is that not the case?
There's a really good video out there. I didn't put this in my links, but I could pull it up at the end that shows exactly where everybody was. So I'll send that one to you in the chat. Maybe at the end.
Okay.
I could pull it up now. I guess maybe it makes more sense to pull that one up now. Just in the sequence of things that we're talking about. Let me see if I can get it really quick. I have it in a Telegram chat. This is not it, but if you want to see something funny real quick, here. Thought you'd appreciate that.
Biden after beating COVID. Did he beat it the same way he beat Medicare?
Okay, here we go, I have it. 3D model. Alright, let me see if there's a video.
Yeah, I'm scrolling down. Okay, so that's a bird's eye view.
Oh, interesting. As you drew it, it kind of,
Yeah.
Alright.
That's the stage, that's the podium. So...
I'll just watch on your screen instead of my
Two
own.
sniper teams were on the buildings. And the shooter was over there, so if the sniper was on this slope instead of the outward slope, then they might have had a harder time getting a visual on this guy.
Yeah,
so there should have been a sniper on another elevated location somewhere around.
Well, there should have been. There should have been people over on those roofs, but
and it was to Trump's right, so that okay.
Yes. So
the guy that died must have been to Trump's left here, and where's the teleprompter Trump was looking at?
I don't know.
Perhaps
that this shows
back here, or perhaps back here. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I have a note, I was going to bring it up at the end, but this water tower, now that we have the 3D model pulled up, I heard that there may have been, we don't know, may have been a second shooter on this water tower.
I saw that. I saw that people were theorizing about the second shooter. The reason that I'm kind of willing to debunk that right away is I would think that if there was a second shooter, the chances are much higher that Trump would have died. I don't see the fact that he survived leads me to think there was only the one.
Right.
Like, if there's two shooters, why would the second one have missed?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless, once the first one fired, I mean, the Secret Service tackles Trump to the ground. At that point, this presumed water tower shooter would no longer have had a sight, if everything happened so quick. Maybe things went down quicker than they could. I don't believe there was a second shooter. I saw people saying that. I don't believe it, but, I mean, at this point, like I said, I'm pretty agnostic on all things concerning this event right now, just because just the incompetence is so great that it's hard to know what's true and what's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll tell you this 3D model will tell you pretty much where everybody was. And you can see, yeah. So the snipers are on one slope, looking over towards that building. They can see him. They were able to see him. They had the visual on him. But I guess they didn't have enough of a visual to know if he was an armed threat. So that's why they didn't kill him until after he started shooting. Because part of him was obscured by the other roof here. Because, I mean, as soon as he starts shooting, they kill him. So the sniper teams did have the visual on him. They were probably watching him the whole time. The question is, why did they have to wait? Why did they have to wait for him to shoot first? And that's what we were talking about earlier. What were the rules of engagement? And that's why it's so important that they get brought in and questioned. They have got to be questioned about this.
The other thing I'm looking at is just for funsies, trying to place together where that crowd of people was that was notifying the police officer. I would guess somewhere around here. And then I saw a picture from an angle looking like the ladder was propped up between two buildings, so that might have been here.
Yeah, it's between the buildings. Did you happen to see the video of, there's a fence. There's a fence separating this building from this grassy area, and all the police they don't even know how to get through the fence to get to the building. There's a crowd of police, they're the response team, standing around with their hands on their hips because they don't know what to do.
Man, oh man.
I'll see if I can find that video, but we can move on to the next one if you want.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, the woman in the audience with the strange behavior, I don't think that's anything. Now we're going to be moving on to kind of the fallout from this, the accusations being levied at the Secret Service response, what people are saying. This is pretty much everything I have regarding the actual events of the shooting, though. So the next article I have is from Daily Wire. The Secret Service, the Secret Service denies the report that resources were diverted away to a Jill Biden event that was taking place about an hour away in Pittsburgh. Apparently, also, there was a Kamala event taking place in Lake Philly, so there were a lot of events that would have required Secret Service going on in Pennsylvania all at once. But they're denying the report that resources were diverted away from Trump. Dan Bongino, though, who is former Secret Service, says that the presence at the rally was less than usual. He said that there should have been 4 to 6 snipers, but there were only 2. And then this is a quote from him. He said, "The problem is, where the hell was the aerial visual support? Why was there no helicopter? Why was there no drone? Why was there no FLIR," which I had to look that up, that's forward-looking infrared. Why was there no thermal? And then he said forward-looking infrared again in the quote, so he answered himself, what is FLIR? How the hell is the crowd acting as the frickin' counter-surveillance? And that's a great question. But now I think we have a little bit clearer picture. We have a little bit more facts. And the facts do not help. They do not help the Secret Service's case. If it's true that they were aware of him for 10 minutes before the shooting, and then they lost him and were trying to find him. Now, in regard to all his questions here that he poses, these are fair questions. What we need to find out is if these were standard practices at all the previous Trump rallies. And I tried to look that up, and I can't find it. So, at previous Trump rallies, were there helicopters? Were there drones? Was there thermal? Was there infrared? If these were all things that were standard practice at previous Trump rallies, and then they weren't at this one, okay, now we have some questions. If these were not things that were previously used at Trump rallies, well, then it's hard to say, if these are specifically instances of dropping the ball or not. I would think, common sense tells me drones. Drones should be at every Trump rally. So I would think if there were no drones, I would be very surprised if that wasn't a standard practice, because it's such an easy thing to have.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember too. I've been to 2 Trump rallies, and I don't remember whether or not there were helicopters. I didn't notice. Certainly, we have the technology. We have the ability to do that.
Yeah, the question, like I said, the question just is, were any of these things standard practice at previous Trump rallies? Because if they were, and then they weren't used at this one, I mean, that's a problem. That's when you could start to cross the line from gross incompetence to maybe somebody let something happen on purpose.
Yeah. I'm still open to the theory of those other 2 events diverting Secret Service resources.
I mean, like I said, Secret Service is denying it, that resources were diverted, but then you need to know, I guess, how many agents are there supposed to be. And, I mean, in order to find this out, like I said, we're really just going to be kind of stuck waiting for these subpoenas and these congressional inquiries in order to find out anything. Which, when we get a little further down in this too, there does seem to be some obstruction taking place. Like Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, DHS seem to be already putting up walls and barriers, and they're not being forthcoming. They're not being transparent. Which, I mean, should we be surprised at this point? No.
Right.
No. And it's, something else that I want to say is they open themselves up to conspiracy theory. Even if the conspiracy isn't true, they have only themselves to blame now that such a large plurality of Americans, have become conspiracy theorists. Because of the way that this administration has chosen to operate, because they're so non-transparent in everything they do. Because all institutional trust, especially in Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and Department of Justice, especially in those three areas, because institutional trust is broken down so much, I really think that they've opened themselves up to conspiracy theorism, and they only have themselves to blame for it. If people think that they're out there doing the worst things on earth, they only have themselves to blame.
I could say the same thing about a lot of topics. Opening themselves up to conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't want people out there making accusations, the simple, honest answer is just come and clean with everything. Just don't obstruct. Don't be an obstructionist in any way, shape, or form. Just come clean and come forward with everything. And then if you find somebody effed up, well, then you just fire them. And this is a really great point that Trump made in the debate. I don't know if you remember one thing in particular that Trump said during the debate with Biden, and at the time I thought it was a great point, but now it rings even more true. Is he said, you don't fire people. He said, Joe, you don't fire people. How come you never fire anyone? I fire people all the time. And it's a super Trumpian thing to say. Obviously because his whole thing before he became president was,
you're fired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So firing people was like part of his brand, but it's a really good point actually what he says, and it's super true. In the Biden administration, nobody ever gets fired. Like, they never axe one of their own for anything. And this goes back to the very first few days of the Biden presidency. You had the botched Afghan pullout.
I can think of one example of someone getting fired. That's the suitcase robber, the luggage robber. I forget his name. Its name.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that person did in fact get fired, but it's just so funny to think that's what it takes. That's what it takes to get fired. You have to be just a dysgenic freak who goes and steals people's luggage as part of a fetish from airports. That's what it takes to get fired.
Well, not being that. They're fine if you're being that kind of a freak, but being caught doing it is the part that gets you fired.
I think that person probably got fired because they were just such a nobody in the administration. What was their job title? They were in charge of nuclear waste or something.
Yeah, that person has information on our nuclear stockpile, and they're a kleptomaniac.
Yeah, but like I said, though, going back really quick to the if you just look at all the big scandals. So the Afghan pullout was one of the biggest ones right at the start, and you actually had the Department of Defense, the Biden administration, drone bombed and killed innocent people.
As they do.
It was an accident. They bombed the wrong house, and they killed a family.
Haha, whoopsie.
And like the accountability stopped at, we're looking into it, and then you never heard anymore. Nobody publicly lost their job. Nobody was fired. I mean, if it were the Trump administration, Trump would have been firing people left and right. You would have seen heads roll. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So the Afghan pullout's the first big one. The second one, I would say, the border and immigration. Mayorkas has totally failed on that. The border security, I don't know if you could say they failed. Their hands have pretty much been tied. They're not allowed to do anything. But nobody's lost their job there. I mean, Trump would have fired people. He would have fired people. There's no doubt about it. Lloyd Austin, defense secretary, goes on leave to go to the hospital and doesn't tell anyone. That's a huge deal. He should have been fired. Which, funny story about that, I don't know if you saw this, Biden referred to him as the black guy in an interview today.
That's pretty funny.
His name. He couldn't remember his name. He couldn't remember Lloyd Austin's name, and he just referred to him as the black one. He was like, you know, the black one. So, good for Biden. Biden's really, he's really showing why he's the progressive people's choice. He can't remember one of his secretary's name, and that's what he comes up with.
There was a time, I remember, I was alive for it, where that wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
Man, they're trying and trying. I think they're actually making progress on it, which I'm sad about. They're trying to make the word retard taboo, which I will never stop saying it. I will be that old guy in the nursing home. Grandpa, you shouldn't say that. You're retarded. Fuck you.
Oh, no, man, I think you got it wrong. I think that retard was made taboo, and it's actually coming back in a strong way. Like, I'm hearing more and more people say it.
Really?
Than I've heard it in years. In years, I'm hearing retard come back in a big way. Retard is making its comeback tour.
Yeah, for me, I've always used it, and then, like, it's been a slow trickle, the number of people who have told me, oh, you shouldn't say that word anymore.
I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the nickname that some people are giving the shooter online?
Retardy Oswald.
Yeah, Retardy Oswald.
Love that.
Pretty good. Pretty good name.
Anyway, yeah, let's go to the next link.
Yeah, of course.
Oh yes, the sloped roof.
Yes, the sloped roof. This is like this is the scandal. The scandal of the sloped roof. So the director of the Secret Service made the comment that the rooftop used by the shooter was deemed too steep. It was too sloped for an agent to be posted on. They were worried about an agent getting injured. The funny counter to this is that the rooftops that the sniper teams were on were steeper. They were steeper than the roof that the shooter used. So that pretty much debunks her defense. There's also a video of a cow. There's a video going out there. There's a video going around of a cow that somehow got up on that rooftop. This is the rooftop that the shooter used, and you can see you can see a cow walking around on that rooftop.
Okay, I don't know how you got there, but hello.
Yeah, so I don't know how they can say that the rooftop was too sloped for a sniper team, or at least just a Secret Service agent to be posted up there, just to secure the roof to make sure that no one else used it. When a cow was able to somehow get up on that rooftop and walk around.
I want to know how. I'm proud of that cow, and I want to know how he did it. Or I guess the cow's probably a she. You still there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. I was trying to look and see if I could find the video of the cow.
Oh, yep. Thank you. Much obliged.
I cannot find it at this moment. Sloped roof blamed by Secret Service boss for Trump assassination bid. This is the Times of India.
Oh.
The Times of India. I was hoping maybe they would have
the assassin did the needful.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we have? From the Hill, Kimberly Cheadle will not resign after the attempted Trump assassination, and this is just going back to what I was saying earlier. How Joe Biden doesn't fire people. Joe Biden's administration doesn't fire people. How in any other administration on earth, this lady would have been fired immediately. I don't know if you saw, some people were calling her Kimberly Cheeto.
Yeah, imagine going through middle school with the last name Cheadle.
Well, they're calling her Cheeto because her previous job, before being the Secret Service director...
I did hear about this.
It was the head of security for PepsiCo.
Yeah.
Who owned Cheetos. So they're calling her Kimberly Cheeto. And I guess she was a good friend of Joe Biden. So she's not only like a diversity hire, but she's also like a... like a nepotism hire too. So
Nice.
you know, I don't know how you go from being the head of security at PepsiCo to being the director of the Secret Service. That seems like kind of a weird transition to me, but
I suppose
Yeah.
the jobs are related, and it doesn't really matter as much what's in the location that you're guarding. So I can see that being relevant,
when I imagine
depending on other qualifications.
when I imagine the director of Secret Service, I think of like somebody with a military background, somebody who's responsible for securing locations globally in a conflict, or someone who's responsible for, protecting world leaders. I don't think head of security for a company, like a private company. But I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe there is some experience there that's applicable. But personally, I think, like military or law enforcement experience, I would think would be something that would be a given if you're going to be the director of the Secret Service.
Makes sense. I do plan to stay on. I'm just reading through the article.
So yeah, she got interviewed. And she did say in the interview that the buck falls on her.
Yep. However,
she will not resign. And I mean, I just think that's absolutely insane. People are rightly calling for her resignation. This was the mother of all f-ups.
That's not my wallet.
Yeah, like we were a centimeter away from. I don't know. I'm not sure what things would look like right now if the shooter had been successful. And maybe that's something we can talk about a little bit at the very end. Just what would things look like right now if this had gone down differently?
They would look crazy, I can tell you that. You ready for the next link?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Susan Crabtree, who works for Real Clear Politics. She's where I've been getting a lot of the information from. And this final link here is just the DHS is involved and seems to be, kind of doing some light obstruction, some light road blocking to the inquiry, which, as I said earlier, should we even be surprised at this point? This is why nobody trusts the institutions. This is why whatever answers we do get, we're not going to be able to trust.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything that I had to say on the topic, though. Like I said, there's probably more information out there than I even got to cover because I collected most of these links and most of my information. I guess 2 nights ago we were planning on doing this.
Right.
Originally, and then you were asleep the first night, and then I was asleep the second night.
Yeah.
So there's probably more out there that we didn't even get to. I tried to add things in though, because things that have come out that I've picked up on, even if I don't have a link, a source, a lot of this stuff is pretty public already. I try not to include anything too fringe that I've heard that I can't verify. Obviously, a big one is going to be the stock short. That's just a little too esoteric for me right now.
Yeah.
To try to delve into. I think that people holding Trump stock were planning on him getting assassinated and shorting it is just a little too far-fetched. But then again, look at the world we live in. So I don't know. It's hard to call anything far-fetched after COVID, after anything. We kind of broke all the rules. We're in peak clown world now.
Yep.
But yeah, like I said, that's all the stuff that I had prepared. But something I did want to ask you, and I wanted your input on, and I mean, don't be afraid to get specific. What do you think? And this is just, food for thought, hypothetical. just fun to think of, not fun to think about, but hypothesize. What would we be looking at right now if the assassination attempt had been successful?
As far as the convention, I think Nikki Haley would try to get it. I don't know if she would have enough support if other people would jump in and contest it, and it would be a whole delegate fight. I think a lot of the delegates would go away from her because she's just too neocon.
I think that if Nikki Haley tried to throw her hat in the ring at that point, a large number of Republicans, a large number of conservatives would be outright accusing her of being behind it. And I don't think she obviously I don't believe that Nikki Haley was behind it. But people would be out there saying that right now. They'd be saying it.
Right.
Anybody who didn't withdraw their name from the running, I think, would be getting that treatment.
Have we ever had a presidential election where both candidates drop dead? Because I don't know how close Biden is with his health.
I don't even know if he really has COVID. This might just be their excuse, and he's
Probably.
saying it so they can try to get him out,
Probably, but even so.
That's what they're going to go with. That's what they're going to use, is, he has COVID.
Yeah.
Probably the lamest excuse ever to drop out if that's what he ends up doing.
Presidents back then get pneumonia during your inauguration speech and literally die. Presidents now, oh, I have to drop out. What happened?
Yeah, like, which one was it who was shot and then he just went ahead and gave his speech anyway? That was Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Yep, that was Teddy.
Did he I think he what? He snorted cocaine and then went and gave a speech, right? like medicinal cocaine.
If that's true, that's my new favorite fact.
Let me see if I can find something on that real quick.
My old favorite fact was Nixon having a car that could also function as a boat, like it could float on a lake. And he would have a guest in his car and say, "Oh no, the brakes went out," drive downhill towards water, and then, oh, we're floating. Apparently Nixon would do that. But if Teddy snorted cocaine before that speech, that's my new favorite fact.
I think I heard that somewhere. I'm having a hard time finding it right now, but I think at the time it was used medicinally to, like, kind of sharpen you up and focus you. It wasn't, a highly controlled illegal substance like it is now.
I could buy that, because I know it was in Coca-Cola at some point, and I also know that, like, if you look at the ingredients for a cough syrup or something like that from around that time period, you'd find stuff like, I think they put chloroform in it and a bunch of other stuff that today we're like, oh, what?
Here's something. Cocaine was the drug of choice for treating nasal swelling, often preventing blood loss from patients' nose. Here, I see some stuff about FDR was given cocaine. Maybe it was FDR who took cocaine before his speech in order to wake himself up. It was a different Roosevelt. I had heard that it was Teddy Roosevelt, and he did it at the speech that he was shot. He was shot at the speech, and then he snorted cocaine and went ahead and gave a speech anyway. But, my apologies if my facts are off on that. Maybe they are. I'm having a hard time finding it right now.
Have you seen the one video of FDR walking?
I don't think so, no.
I think it was like during his first election or something like that. He was trying to hide the fact that he needed a wheelchair because they didn't think it would help him in the polls. And at one point, we have like a 3-second video of this, black and white, and at one point there was like 2 people close to him would walk like close by, shoulder to shoulder, and they would kind of use his arms to prop him up to give the illusion of him walking.
I don't know if I've ever seen that. Maybe I have. I might have seen that.
Let me look it up.
Are you going to pull it up?
You are, of course, a presidential nerd and a lover of baseball.
Both true.
Both true. I would like to play some video right here. This is brand new video, actually, here to us, very old, new video to us, showing FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had polio, as we know, walking stiffly, but walking nonetheless, his legs supported by braces, walking up the ramp. This is the 1937 Major League Baseball All-Star game, and it's so rare to see that.
FDR did not like people seeing his disability, and his administration did a lot to hide it. Now, there are mentions, if you go back and search, there are mentions, and even some images of FDR struggling to walk. But there's even a story back in 1936, editor and publisher of a reporter taking a picture.
I think it was a different video I saw, because I know it was... Let's see.
Isn't that that female anchor? Isn't she the one with the who is this 4chan? Do you remember that?
Oh, I think I do.
That's her, isn't it? Who is this 4chan? Let me see if I can find a GIF of that, because that's
okay.
That's such a classic.
Might have been this video. Let's see.
It is incredible footage. And
no,
it
that's
really
the
gives you
baseball
insight.
video.
There it is. I love that GIF. Who is this 4chan?
That's just a still. Oh, okay, here it is, here it is. Gonna play it slow and then turn it back.
Do you think we'd be in civil war right now if it happened? Like, do you think people would start shooting?
I don't think so.
See, I'm divided on it. Half of me thinks no, it wouldn't, just because the political right, conservatives are just they're just so docile by comparison to the political left that they just seem to have a limitless tolerance for, I mean, anything and everything. But the other half of me is not sure, and it's because, and I was giving this some thought today. I was giving this some thought while I watched Trump's speech, and I was giving this some thought, thinking back to how Trump reacted, right after the moments after the assassination attempt, was standing back up with the blood on his face and the iconic fist pump in the air, and just saying, fight, fight, fight. I was thinking about how Trump supporters, Trump voters, love Trump in a way that no other Republican has had that in our lifetime. No other Republican has had the kind of support and loyalty and love that Trump has. He's almost like a father figure to his supporters and his followers, and people love and respect him in a way that like I said, no Republican before him. People liked Bush. Bush had supporters, but nobody loved Bush. Nobody was that excited about George Bush. Nobody was. I mean, obviously, nobody was excited about John McCain or Mitt Romney. I mean, but I think that people would have taken it like a personal assault on themselves if Trump had been assassinated. So, like I said, half of me thinks maybe violence would have happened. Half of me thinks maybe not.
I don't think so. I think for one, people on the right have too much to lose, and for another thing, they would be distracted by the convention, by picking the next nominee, and by probably focusing more on the congressional candidates, because I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene and the others in the House would be pushing even harder for looking into the FBI and the Secret Service if Trump actually were taken out. So I think that would be the next non-violent battlefield. I don't think very many people at all would organize physically with guns.
Like I said, man, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure because, like I said, people loved Trump in a way that they don't other Republicans. He's Donald Trump in a lot of ways is like an avatar. He's like an avatar for conservative frustration. Conservatives, Republicans, people on the right, call them what you will, were frustrated for years and years, and that frustration manifested in Donald Trump. And people love him because of the way he talked. He speaks like a simple person. He resonates with a simple, not a simple person, but he talks like the middle of the country, and he seems to get people. He seems to get people, and he seems to like people. He's not at the French Laundry eating $1,000 meal during COVID lockdown. He's getting McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like he gives a real sense to everybody of he's one of us. And for that reason, I think people, like I said, they almost look at him like a fatherly figure. And I think that had the attack been successful, people would have felt like a member of their family had been killed, not just a person that they wanted to elect for president, but like a member of their family. And I think that's how a lot of people. I think that's how a lot of people think of Trump and view Trump. They look at him like a member of their family. And I think that's why he has the support he has. And I don't know, you and I, we've known each other for a while, we've argued politics for a while. There have been times where I've been kind of critical of Trump. There's been some times where I was, really, really in the Trump camp. And there's some times where I was kind of out of it. I am now more in it than ever following the assassination attempt because of how he reacted in the moments following it. We saw, I think, more of his character. We learned more about him in those moments than we've known about him the entire time. I mean, any other person on Earth probably would not have reacted the way he did. Standing up, putting his fist in the air and saying "fight, fight, fight." Like it speaks volumes to his strength and how he won't be kowtowed, he won't be intimidated. It's just I learned more about him in that moment than I've known about him the entire time that we've been following his political career.
And it's like I was saying last stream too. Trump has that effect of having been the first huge voice against social justice, and because of that, a lot of people, even if they don't agree with all or even a lot of his policy, they gravitate towards him because social justice was just this behemoth in the culture since the early 2010s, and now we finally have a figurehead that is able to stand against it. And something else I want to say too is how much he unifies the right, how much he gives direction. I think without Trump, the right would be a lot more, or feel at least a lot more fragmented. It would be lots of different people doing lots of different things, like so many different goals, not always competing, but not always overlapping either. And so many different people working on each one.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Absolutely. And I mean, Trump, what you said about the unification of the party is totally true. And the party is, the Republican Party, the conservative movement, the right wing. All three of those things have overlap, but they're not all the same thing. You can be right wing, but you're not a conservative, or you're not a Republican. You could be a Republican, but you're not right wing, or you're not conservative. You could be conservative, but you're not. Well, if you're conservative, you're right wing probably, but you're not. You might not necessarily be a Republican. So he has found a way to get the support of all of those, despite the fact that all three have wildly different motivations, all three have wildly different beliefs. That's why the Trump coalition now has both evangelicals, and he can also bring like pro-choice people into the fold. He's bringing Hispanics and blacks into the fold.
Yeah.
He's bringing, he is bringing in voter groups that are traditionally non-Republican. Did you see? They had the Teamsters boss said he's not going to endorse Biden.
I did see that.
And then they had the union guy at the RNC. At the RNC, they had who was it? Let me try to look it up real quick.
A bunch of my lefty friends were real salty about that. It was kind of funny.
Prominent labor president Sean O'Brien spoke at the Republican National Convention. Like that right there is, that's huge. That's huge. He's bringing different groups into the fold that are not typical or traditional Republican voters, and he's able to do that because he's not a uniform party platform guy. Like he's not even like an ideological guy.
I was thinking about this last night. If you read Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, that's been sort of the left-wing activists' playbook for a while now. But I went through that, and one of the things he says in there is operate outside your opponent's realm of experience. So in other words, do something they don't expect. If you're, for example, if you're at like a theater, one example he gives specifically in the book is a bunch of rich people who are all connected with this one local government that gives a policy that the group of people Saul was working with at the time didn't like. So what he did is he got a bunch of blacks and he fed them all beans, and then he got them all tickets into this theater, and they're sitting there watching like a music concert or something, and then just a few dozen blacks all chorus of farting in between that. Just do something they don't expect. Hit them completely out of left field. I was thinking about how the mail-in voting, how that was the left hitting us out of left field, and what they do is when they put together the door knocking lists, they rate voters on a scale of 1 to 4, depending on how often they vote. And the 1s and the 2s, the ones who don't vote often at all, their logic is they might be more likely to send a mail-in ballot if they don't have to leave the house. So that's what they've been doing since 2020. But now Republicans are catching up with that in a big way, and furthermore, Trump is hitting them out of left field now, operating out of their experience. Who expects a Republican rally in the Bronx? Who expects a Republican rally in Jersey Shore? They don't know what to look out for now, because there was a poll recently that Virginia was 2 points red. They don't know where to defend. They don't know which coalitions they have to maintain, because they haven't had to think about maintaining these coalitions in so long.
Right. And I'm really glad that you brought up Rules for Radicals, because the one rule in particular, it's one of my favorites. Make the enemy live up to its own book of rules, and we're really seeing that one in particular play out right now. Have you seen the outrage over Libs of TikTok getting people fired,
Yep.
or cheering on the Trump shooter, and then you saw, like Sam Hyde had a big post about that, which was amazing. What he said was amazing. I keep going back to reread it, just because of how excellently written it is. But that's that rule. That's that rule manifest. Make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. So that's, cancel culture. Let's talk about cancel culture for 1 second. Cancel culture is something that became very prominent as a term in the early 2010s, like 2012, I think maybe, is when we really started to see it, and we really started to call it out. It was, you get fired from your job for believing in traditional marriage. You get fired from your job for being pro-life. You get fired from your job because you liked a post by like Mitt Romney, So that's kind of where it started, and that's when, we started calling it out. If we tried to do it back, we would say cancel culture is bad. We don't want it to exist anymore. But if we tried to do it back, the enemy would say, that's against your rules. It's not against our rules, but it's against your rules, and we're going to make you live up to your own book of rules. So that's Saul Alinsky 101 right there.
Have you heard about the Burnville mayor? Well, I mean, we've been talking about it in the Discord, so I know you have. But the guy that posted "Pennsylvania proud, try harder next time" after the assassination. News update from that you may have already seen. Burnville mayor's online post in wake of Trump's shooting leads to closing of borough office. They're afraid for the safety of their employees. Everyone's working from home for at least a week, possibly longer. They're referring the phone calls and the emails they get to law enforcement because they feel threatened. So many people just pouring in messages to this borough office asking the guy to resign. But then it says further down in this local news article, the only way to force him out of office would be for the state Congress to vote to impeach him, which, if there's the political will, it might be possible.
Well, what percentage did this guy win by in his last election? Because, if it was I don't know Burnville, I don't know the demographics there. But if it was a close election, he probably just sealed his fate.
I don't know the percentage, and I don't know when the next election for that post is.
Let me see if I can find it really quick. I don't even know where is Burnville. I've never heard of Burnville.
It's just a little bit north of Reading. Sort of like Leesport area. It's like a little south of Kutztown.
Let's see. Let's do Burnville mayor election results. Is it in Berks? Is it Berks County?
Yep, that's it.
Was this guy elected in 2023?
Quite possibly.
Yeah, this is his municipal election. I don't know if this is for the mayor or what.
What was the results from that?
Summary results report 2023 municipal election. Registered voters total 261,000. Ballots cast 85,000. Election day 68,000. Mail 19,000. That's a lot of mail ballots. That's a lot of mail ballots for 2023.
19,000 mail or 68,000 mail?
No, 68,000 election day. 19,000 mail. That's a lot, though. It's basically 20,000.
Yeah, wow.
Election day, that's 66,000. Sorry, so just a little bit shy of a third mail-in. That's pretty suspect.
I wonder if that's vote result. That sounds like the number of votes cast in the whole county, but then they're just focusing on the results of that one race. Because I know offhand Berks County has about that number of registered voters. 200-some thousand. Can you find the election results?
No, I'm trying to find Burnville and I can't find it.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, let's see here if I can find it. Alright, I give up for now. But yeah, if that election was even a little bit close, he's probably sealed his political fate with that comment. And I mean, if it's not close, then he's probably fine. If it's a deep blue borough, he could probably say literally anything he wants and be fine.
Yeah. I know people on the left are thinking it even if they aren't saying it, and they're saying it to each other even if they're not saying it out loud to the public. Could you imagine, like, the amount of celebration if Trump did die?
Well, that's why I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that things wouldn't turn into like a hot war, because not only would people on the right feel personally like not only would people on the right feel like a member of their family had been taken, but people on the left would see it as, I mean, they would see it as a kickoff. They would say, push the advantage. I think that they would see it as their opportunity to go full totalitarian. As Trump has said many times, and he's completely right about this, they're not after him. They're after the rest of us. He's just standing in the way. I mean, he said that in his speech. He said it in his speech. He didn't say it. He didn't say it in his speech. I'm sorry. Eric Trump said it in his speech. Donald Trump didn't say that. His whole speech was it was actually really toned down. It was all about unity, unification. He let his sons give the slightly more fiery speeches.
Yeah, it's been a campaign talking point for a while.
All right. Well, anyway, man, I think we covered just about everything, right?
Yeah, and I think we're running up on time, but yeah, wow. I think we didn't get to the senators approaching the Secret Service head, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a video out there. It's pretty easy to find. Republican senators following Kimberly Cheeto around in a crowd, just giving her a hard time for being just a total fuck up.
Yeah. I'm still laughing at the last name Cheadle.
It's like, I mean, how is the spelling of this one different than like Don Cheadle? How does he spell his?
I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I think it's time to pop off now because I gotta start getting ready for the day.
All right, yeah, you got it, man.
Yep.
I gotta go catch a little nap, and then I'll probably be up pretty soon myself. But yeah, no, it was a good talk, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do it, and I'm glad we got to do another one here. And I look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on with me.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. Catch you later.